Hey, I'm Steven with Curvy Woodworking, and we're going to start to switch up the videos right now. I just bought my first house, so we're going to be doing some renovations. So this is the first room over here. It's a complete fixer-upper. The first thing we're going to do is take out this wall. This is covering up the doorway, so we want to have a clean entranceway. So a result of having no money is I need to get some free help. So luckily I got my dad looking like a tangerine there, and that's his friend Bill, who's going to be helping us with the demolition. So you see a lot of videos where people will take a sledgehammer to a wall, but that's going to give you a whole load of mess to clean up afterwards. So we're going to do this in sequence. We're going to take out the studs, then remove the drywall in large portions so that we can easily throw it out into the trash. Potentially a dining room table here in the corner, some couches here, the TV up against that wall, but there is some work to do. We also want to get rid of the ceiling, so we'll show you how we get that done. So they have an existing popcorn ceiling, and the best way to remove this is to get a mister that you can buy at Home Depot, Rona, anywhere like that. It's just pump action, and you're just going to mist down all of the popcorn ceiling. Take 2 passes through and give it around 5 minutes to set before you take a large scraper and you begin to remove the material. If you are having any trouble with the water penetrating, put some fabric softener into the mix. It won't damage any of the drywall underneath, but it will begin to break down the popcorn ceiling portion. Now, once we're done that, my dad's going to just tape the entire coat over. While we're scraping, we do get a couple gouges in there. We do get a couple pieces of popcorn ceiling that were a little difficult to remove. So he's going to take a very thin pass through the entire ceiling, and we're going to take 2 passes through with 1 coat of sanding in between. And we gotta fix up all these walls along with the corner beads. So they weren't installed very well, so we're gonna have to do a lot of patchwork on that. All of the work on the bottom. All right, so a bit of a tricky part here. We have the wallpaper, and then we actually have the glue layer behind it. So the glue layer behind it is taking off the top layer of the drywall. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take off the thin veneer on top, just the green portion. Then to remove the paper portion, we're gonna get misted down with some water, and then we're just gonna have to scrub it off. If we do it the other way, we're gonna have bubbling occurring because the top layer of paper from the drywall is gone. So we're gonna have to take a little longer on this step, but it's gonna end up saving us time in the end. To further clarify the point on the bubbling that will occur, that's gonna happen when you put a mud layer on top of those patches in the drywall to smooth it over. The moisture from the mud will penetrate into the drywall, and that'll cause bubbles to protrude through the face. Once you go down that rabbit hole, you're going to be in a constant situation where you attempt to cut out the bubbling sections and patch them once again. There is no other way to do it beyond that point, and you have to hope for the best that the water from the mud will stop penetrating inside of the drywall. So this saves us a lot of steps, and it helps to minimize the area where this bubbling could occur. Now we're going to work our way over to the kitchen area. Now we got to gut the whole thing. Right now we're going to look to expand the kitchen set out to the exterior window over here. But we're going to be switching this up. We're going to get some melamine sheets, and we're going to be doing blue on the bottom, some type of stone in the middle, and then we're going to do white cabinets on top. The flooring is going to tie in with the rest of the living room. We're also potentially going to be getting rid of this wall over here, along with the top bulkhead on this side.
I would maybe hammer on the other side.
Boom! Before we removed this wall, we went up into the attic to make sure that the joists were supporting across the span so that this wasn't a load-bearing wall. So we were able to determine that it wasn't, as it was just held and supported from the drywall section alone, and the trusses weren't even running directly on top of this. So we decided to remove it to give the floor a more open feel between the living room through to the kitchen. Once we remove the wall, we turn our attention towards the bulkheads in the kitchen. So you're going to notice that there is a piece of poly, which is a vapor barrier, hanging down from the portion that we cut. Before we close this up with drywall, we have to make sure that we reinstall another piece of poly. This sheet is going to stop any condensation from protruding from the attic coming down, and it will stain the top of the drywall if you do not properly address it in this stage. It also helps to hold in the insulation before we do the drywalling in there. It'll open up the room and you'll have a continuous path going on each way. Now it looks messy now, but keep in mind that with this mess, we also did adopt this bird clock. So we do have something going for us right now. So now we're going to skip a few steps where we patch all the walls and remove the vinyl flooring underneath. We're going to start to prime. So my sister Polina and her fiance Bjorn have been helping us out on this project. And we're going to start by priming all the walls. Now, priming the walls isn't just to give you a solid color behind the paint layer. It's also to harden the mud and to make it the same texture as the rest of the wall. If you just do straight paint on top of a patched wall, you're going to realize that there's a different texture between the existing portion along with that taped portion, the mudded portion. So this is going to give us a nice clean canvas that we can start to paint on. Names of colors always confuse me. I believe that this is called Balboa color, but I am not exactly sure. It looks like something in between gray and brown to me, but I probably don't have a good sense for these things. So if you do want it, and if you do like it, it is called Balboa. For those wondering why she's not painting the entire wall in one go, we're going to have a kitchen installation there, so those sections will be covered up by cabinets. Now, she was already on a roll with painting, so right now we're going to just do a feature wall in my bedroom. So there's a green color. I couldn't even tell you what this color is called. It looks like something between green and blue, so you could ask for that maybe if you liked it. So she's just going to do cutting on the corners, and then she's going to do a couple coats of this paint. Now, the difference in quality of paint will be how many coats you have to do. It's going to look like a solid coat now, but once it dries, we notice a lot of inconsistencies that we have to come back and fix up. For the flooring, I decided to go with the solid oak hardwood. This is distressed wood. I did like the grain, the texture, and everything with it. I was initially looking for an engineered hardwood. Engineered hardwood is just a piece of plywood with a veneer on top. Now, the plywood reverses the grains with one another, so it'll stop the wood from shrinking or warping over the years. With this wood, it will warp based on the moisture content that is in the room. So you have to make sure that you go through diligently and nail on every single piece to minimize the amount of movement based on the differing moisture contents of the seasons or within the home. Before installation, make sure that you do acclimatize a solid hardwood for approximately 2 weeks. If you do go with an engineered hardwood, you can install it the day that you buy it. Come to the bedroom on the lower level, it is massive. It is 200 square feet. However, aside from the usual patching of the walls, redoing the floors, now we got a ceiling that we have to install. So we're gonna get rid of this drop tile ceiling, and we're gonna actually put a drywall ceiling across the top over here. In the spirit of having no money, we had another one of my dad's friends come by to help us. His name is Darko, but we call him Sediak. He's the employee of the month because he brought coffee every single day. When you install the ceiling, you want to make sure that you reverse the order of the joints. So when you have the full sheets coming on the first one, you're going to cut 4 feet off of the next one so that the cross joints will now be delineated between the two. You don't want them running across the entire ceiling. if there is any damage or if there is any movement, that will not help and you'll see a large crease. All right, we put a total of 3 coats on all of our taping jobs. So the first coat, you're gonna go down the middle of your joints and you're gonna put on quite a bit over here. You wanna make it so you can put a piece of tape on top and then squeeze out the juice underneath. Lightly press your finger on it just to keep it fastened to the mud. Now you can see he's gonna press in just the corner, and that's gonna give him enough grip to press down the rest of it without the tape sliding while he's putting the pressure down. So in this room, we're also going to be installing our hardwood. However, this was on a concrete base. So we need something that we can nail our hardwood into. So we have to put down a 3/4 base of rough cut plywood across the entire surface. Now you can go with an engineered hardwood and just put a glue layer on top. An engineered hardwood is just having a plywood with crossing grains. However, since we are using solid oak, we have to make sure that we put this plywood down first so that we do have something to fasten each piece to. Now, when installing the plywood onto the piece of concrete, typically people will drill a hole and use a Tapcon to install it, but the Tapcons are very expensive. So a trick of the trade is you get a piece of tie wire and you get a concrete nail. So once you drill the hole, you're gonna stick the piece of tie wire inside and then you're gonna hammer down this nail into it like this. And that's gonna cause the compression of the tie wire to be a fastener bit between the concrete and the nail. So this isn't gonna move now that we installed it, and it's a lot cheaper alternative compared to using a Tapcon. There was a lot of carpets on this job. So once again, we're gonna be removing the carpet along with the padding underneath. We also have all of this side trimming along the sides that we're gonna have to remove, and that wet bar. One of the biggest surprises on this house was a little bit of rot that we initially found on the underside of this window that we were about to remove. So it was a bit of black mold. We wanted to put a new windowsill in there. We just assumed that maybe they left the window open a couple of the days and the water began to penetrate. After exposing this, we noticed that the sill underneath was rotted along with some of the wall underneath it, heading down towards the next window. So once we removed the first window and we temporarily installed our new window, we began to remove the remainder of the siding so we can get a full extent of the damage. Now it came down like a triangle. If you imagine the peak of that window and then coming down at a 30-degree angle on each side, you can just see that all the stradding behind along with some of the structural beams were completely rotted. And we just tested this by taking a hammer to it and tapping onto it. If it was a solid piece of wood, you'd be able to feel the vibrations and hear the vibrations away from the wood. However, when we tapped this wood, it would just mush in there, almost as if you were hitting a pillow. So we exposed all of the contents that we found to be rotted, and then we replaced them with new 2x10s, new 2x8s, and everything, making sure that as we remove the rotted pieces, we install the new pieces, just so we wouldn't give the house any time to move or sag without, while minimal, some support even from the rotted pieces. In addition to the structural surprise, we also had to replace all of the insulation, so we just bought some rock wool and we packed it in behind the structural supports that we're installing. Once the structural portion is done, we're going to install a piece of aspenite, and that's just going to act as a stradding, something to install the waterproofing membrane along with the aluminum cladding. You need something in behind just to support these small pieces, as without it you just have structural supports that are spaced very awkwardly. Right now, when we do have our guy come in to finish up the siding, he's going to be able to just fasten it directly in behind, and he's going to hit a solid surface. While we try to do the entire house by ourselves, sometimes equipment won't allow us to do so. So to reinstall the aluminum cladding, we had a subcontractor come in, and I was at work that day, so I did not get a good video of him completing that work, but it looks as good as new. Thanks for watching part 1 of this new renovations project. So, in the next video we're going to be installing the kitchen, a lot of interior work. Currently we are installing the baseboards throughout the house. It's going to be a work in progress over the next possibly month or 2 months. So we're going to be putting progress updates on the steps that we took to build this house, and we're going to keep on going forward. Now, we're going to start to work our way downstairs, but the main floor for the most part is complete aside from the kitchen. If you do want to see how we do finish the rest of the house and also the finished product, be sure to subscribe, hit that alert button, and to like this video.